And so we're going to start on 269, which should be the first page of your section in the new packet. It's the same as the old packet, with slightly less quality printing. And just as a reminder, right, what we're doing is we had a Baraita that took a verse and took out each word from that Baraita and explained it. In fact, just in case, because I don't think everybody has it, this is the previous packet, which I think people can have. That way everybody's on the D. This one's actually yours with your name on it. Here you can go. Here you go, Viva. I think those are the ones I have. You have your own, right? And so what I want you to do is actually, I'm going to take it back. Go to 268, which is the previous page. So it'll be the previous page in your packet also. And I want to just remind us of the Baraita. Right? The Baraita says the following. We're at the top of the page. The verse states, "That which is gone out of your lips, you shall keep and do, as you have vowed as a gift to the Lord your God, which you have promised with your mouth." That's the verse. It is 2 verses down from the one we've been talking about you shall not delay. So it's in the same context. Then it goes word by word and explains them. That which has gone out of your lips, this is a positive mitzvah. You shall keep, this is a prohibition. And do, this, it goes on and on and on, word by word, explaining it. So what we are going to do on page 269 is go through the analysis of one of those words. We did that before, but this whole discussion about the seeming repetition of lessons learned here and lessons learned elsewhere, because rabbis are uncomfortable with repetition. And today we're going to look at something else. Everybody with me so far? Okay, great. So now, first page in your new packets, page 269. It's the last. You could do whichever one you wish.
It's easier to read.
Okay, that's true also. So the first page or the last page of your various packets, 269, or the second half of 6a. And we're going to start with the Baraita stated. Before I do that, let's remember, what is a Baraita?
Discussions from the original Mishnah that were not included in the...
Right, 99% right. The same period of time as the Mishnah, but we're not included in the Mishnah itself. So they are considered of the same level of authority, if you will. Cutting room floor, my Rabbi used to say. She said, these are the things that didn't quite make it. Still good, it just didn't quite make it the final version. Okay, Joe,
Except that they did, because here they are.
Right. This is how they did, that's true. Okay, Joe, start us off. The Baraita stated.
The Baraita stated, with your mouth. This is referring to vows of charity. Rabbi said, in the case of vows of charity, one is liable immediately. But he is late in distributing the charity that he had promised to give.
All right, period. So let's stop there for a second. So the Baraita is this whole section, right? So with your mouth, this is referring to vows of charity. And if we looked back, we would have gotten it. Right? This is the very last section of our Baraita from the previous page. So then the question is, what does that mean? And Rava tells us, in the case of vows of charity, there is not this delay system of 3 festivals in the same way. You're in fact liable immediately. Right? As soon as you make this vow, you are now responsible.
Nevertheless, the wording sounds suspicious and subject to interpretation.
Ooh, we've learned Gemara.
Never trust.
Never trust clear statements. Keep going.
What is the reason for this halacha?
Wait, pause before we go on. Before you read ahead, so no spoilers, what might be an answer to this question? What is the reason? What would we guess the Gemara would do?
Well, if you're giving charity, it's for people who need things, need something, and to delay it, they can be hungry or whatever. So.
There's a practical implication,
Yeah.
right? What other logical or other types of arguments might we make to answer the question, what is the reason for this halacha? What else might we expect from Talmud?
Well,
should give it right now before something happens and you won't be able to.
Got it. So a different practical implication, right?
So I find use of the word halacha here fascinating.
Why is that?
Say more.
Why? The way it's stated, it's stated as a fundamental law, kind of like an obligation, what we call a commandment, which is really an obligation. So why is it halacha? Which means it's been discussed and a ruling has been made.
Okay. And your point, you were going to say?
What I was going to say was that the fact that it's in not bold, whereas what is the reason is in bold, tells us that this is Steinsaltz speaking and calling it a halacha, but the Mishnah didn't do that.
Good point. I missed it.
But that's really so it's an important lesson in recognizing that we are learning this in translation, right? And so we always need to be double checking that we're actually doing what we say we're doing. Your question still stands, which is why is this framed this way? Why did Steinsaltz assume it? Why didn't he use the word mitzvah? I think your question still stands. Let's jump into the Aramaic for a second. We're in the second line, the second to third words from the end. And it's my ta'ama. What is the reason? My is like ma, what? And ta'ama is like ta'am, reason. Right? It's the Aramaic, my ta'ama. What is the reason? And the question is, what is the reason of? And Steinsaltz is telling us of this halacha that we are liable immediately. I think another thing we might have guessed as an answer to this question, what is the reason, is because the Torah told us, here's a verse. Right? The rabbis love to give verses as proof texts. So we might have assumed that the answer was going to be a verse from the Torah. Oh, we learned it from this Breita somewhere else. That's another option. Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of the point, is that the rabbis have to have a proof text from preferably the Torah, but from Tanakh, because if this devolves to the rabbis made this up, right, then there's a much looser connection than if the rabbis say, we are saying this because the Torah says so. Right? So it's not us making it up. Right. God says so.
Right. Now we're going to see that that's not what happens. There isn't a verse that comes. But if we're starting to learn not just about the content, but how does Talmud work, understanding that a verse might be the answer is an important thing. Okay, keep reading. So what is the reason for this halacha that we're liable immediately?
It is that poor people, to whom the charity may be given, exist in all places, so the charity can be distributed to them immediately, unlike an offering which must be brought to the temple.
Great. So now, let's be clear. To your point, the only thing that the Gemara actually says is, because poor people exist. Which by itself is a powerful statement, right? They exist. Immediacy matters. Now Steinsaltz pulls that apart for us a little and says, oh, well, actually, it's because they list everywhere and the temple's only one place, and right?
Well, that was part of the discussion about bringing the offerings to the temples. Why do you have this, flexibility in terms of time? Why are you allowed to wait several festivals? It's because of the difficulty of getting to the temple. Right, and so I think that the contrast here is, right, you can give charity to the poor people
Right where you are.
right where you are.
But not only
For a few reasons, but is charity a holy topic? Because we weren't talking about charity up to now.
We have not been talking about charity. The only time it has shown up so far, it shows up in this Breita on the previous page at the top of 268. But otherwise, it hasn't come up.
But it's related to the idea of vows.
Correct.
Like obligations and vows.
Right. So the conversation of you shall not delay is, I have made a vow, and therefore I have a time limit before I've transgressed. You shall not delay. And one vow that I can make is that of charity. But we're learning that this
Talks
is.
about the gleanings from the fields.
So it's not talking about gleanings in the fields, not specifically. It's talking about, I say, I'm going to give.
That was charitable.
It was charitable, yes, but I think this is more. I think this is talking about something more direct.
So back just to say,
Yeah.
back on 268, where it comes up is right after the idea of which you have promised, which talks about objects. And so then the counter to that is whereas with your mouth refers to vows of charity which you commit yourself orally.
Got it.
It's not about.
So if you look at the text on the previous page, it says, with your mouth, this is referring to vows of charity, which unlike the thing that came right before, are things that are happening because I said it.
Right.
I said it, and therefore I become committed to it, right? As opposed to a physical object that I might have to, might be the measure in which of whether or not I fulfilled it.
Like you wouldn't have to say that you're going to give a particular goat, but all you have to do is like mark it in some way. Or,
Right, so we
you don't
haven't
have to say
said,
anything.
right, so we haven't said how much, like whether or not the framework is I'm going to give X amount to charity, right? It hasn't defined what the vow has to actually look like yet.
And
So,
did it say you were giving it to the temple or to the
So this would-
UJF? Or to the UJF?
right,
I'm serious.
right, no, it's a great question. So it doesn't, so far, what we know doesn't specify either way. Right, all we know is that vows of charity are liable immediately, and that we say them with our
It's
mouth.
for the poor.
Right, this is tzedakah.
Okay, but it was money that you were pledging the poor, but not to the temple.
Correct. I believe that's the case. Yeah, Cindy.
So I was just sitting here and thinking that, Steinsaltz has all this, explanation around those three words, but, poor people exist. I mean, in that form, that's way more powerful than anything else you could say. Why should we rush to give charity? Because poor people exist. End of discussion.
Full
right?
stop.
Yeah, full stop.
It's
Exactly.
deeply profound.
It's very important.
It's actually like the change in the highest motto, which was originally we rescue people because they were Jewish,
Exactly.
and now we rescue people because we are Jewish. Because you just do it.
Yeah.
The framework
Just
changes.
do it. Yeah, exactly.
You want to make your pitch? Now's a good time. Make your pitch.
Thanks for the opening. So Rabbi Jeremy is teaching the first 3 Mondays in March a class about giving and taking, like under the framework of the J-Funds organizations, Jewish Assistance Fund, Hebrew Free Loan, Jewish Scholarship Service, Passport to Israel. But like, what are the foundations of these organizations from our texts, and how do we embody in practice every day in Pittsburgh what this is saying?
Right. Great. Good pitch. Come join us in March. All right. Let's move along. It'll be free.
Food included.
Food included.
Where is it?
Depends how many people come.
We shall see. TBD. Stay tuned for more.
Not
All
at the
right.
temple or federation.
Right. This is not for the temple. All right. So now I want to move on to the next section, and I want to point out a couple of important Gemara words. So, in the section we just read was my tama. What is the reason? But then if you move along to the next paragraph, it starts with one word with an exclamation point. Pshita. This was obvious.
Of course.
And let me be clear. Anytime the Gemara says Pshita, this is obvious, it wasn't. They're going to say something you're like, I never would have thought that, but the rabbis are the rabbis. They still want to point
Or
out.
at the very least, they'll say it's obvious and then explain it anyway.
Right. Which is exactly what will happen. Mahu detema, the next 2 words, which means like you might have said, right? So this is obvious because you might have said something, but we know that's not the case. And we know that sentence is going to say that because if you look in the 3rd line in the middle, it says ka mashmalan. Does anyone remember? We saw that before. Does anyone remember what ka mashmalan means? That's okay. It's no test for this class. It means, and it was taught, and this was what was taught, but it always tells us that the previous statement isn't the case. So it was taught that was wrong. So, Pshita, this was obvious. You might have thought blank. Kamash Malan, we learn it was taught, not the case. Everybody with me? Then I want you to put in squares the next word, hatam, which means there. And then right below it, you see the word hacha, here. Means this, so it's going to make a comparison. Well, there it says one thing, but here it says something else. Okay? Is everybody with me so far?
Yep.
So,
I'm not seeing.
and right hacha is immediately below it.
Oh, haka, right there.
You see it? Find it? Okay? Alright, so let's just, before we even read any of the content, Pshita, it was obvious. You might have thought X. We learned that that's not the case. Something is there, and something now is here.
This is begging for like a Monty Python. Gemara.
Right. Just a thin man.
Right.
Right? Okay. Can I get a volunteer to read for us? The Gemara asks. Go for it.
The Gemara asks, it is obvious that charity must be given to the poor without delay.
Wait, was it obvious?
It was not.
It was not obvious.
It was obvious. It's no longer going to be obvious.
They say,
Fair
is
enough.
Is it obvious?
Right? The presumption, right, for us it's obvious. But halacha. Alright, keep going.
The Gemara explains, lest you say that since the halacha pertaining to vows of charity is written in the passage dealing with offerings, perhaps one does not transgress the prohibition against delaying until 3 festivals have passed, as is the halacha with regard to offerings.
Alright, let's pause there. That seems pretty reasonable. We've been learning about this 3 festival thing. It would seem reasonable that in that discussion, 3 festivals, that's as long as I have. Is everybody with me so far? This might be the rare case where the pshita is actually obvious. Right? We might have actually said that. But, therefore,
Rava teaches us that this is not so. Rather, there, with regard to the offerings, the Merciful One made the timing of the transgression dependent upon the time of the festivals, when one must go on pilgrimage to the temple. However, here, with regard to charity vows, this is not so because poor people who are ready to accept charity are found in all places.
okay? Pshita. It was obvious that this was, that you were immediately liable. Why? You might have said that festivals, we've been talking about festivals, and therefore this is in the same category. We learned that this is not the case, because there it's about offerings, and here it's not, because this is about the fact that poor people are everywhere.
It's so interesting to me how pragmatic this is. That it's not about values, it's not about what's more like a hierarchy, it's about just what can be done logistically.
It's written by humans.
Right?
They have some say-so.
Right.
Right.
So I think one of the things that's so valuable for us when we look at these kinds of texts, like we can get lost in all of these arguments, and I'm sure we will again. But the value that the rabbis are trying to bring forward is, I am a human and I am trying to live a good life, meaningful life, and I have to encounter reality as a result. We haven't seen it yet, but there is a place in the Gemara, many places in the Gemara, where the rabbis will encounter an issue, and they'll say, Puk chazeh, go out and look and see what people do. That's how we'll decide. Right?
But that's not true.
Puk chazeh. You'll see it. We'll come to it, I'm sure.
So,
Right? So seeing real life matters.
so
Yeah.
2,000 years ago, the difference between a temple offering and charity was apparently clear. So, how does that impact on the tithe thing?
A tithe?
The tithe. The
So we haven't.
10%.
So we haven't incurred. So there are lots of different tithes. So wait. So we have a lot of different types of tithes, and they do go to the temple. But a tithe. But wait a sec.
So,
Wait a sec. But a tithe is not the same category as what we're talking about. Because what category are we talking about? Vows.
so
Yeah,
a
that's not
tithe is
included in
different
10%
from the
either.
offering, which is different from charity.
A tithe is an offering, effectively, but not this kind of offering.
So
It's
the
this
last tax cut brought us below what they were paying 2,000 years ago. That's my conclusion.
The difference is that you don't, with a tithe, it's not about making a vow. It's about the expectation that you're going to do.
I'm learning as we go.
As we
that's
all
the
do.
difference, isn't it? I mean,
What?
that you're not, for the tithe, there's no vow involved.
So in a tithe, according to the Gemara and and rabbinic culture and texts, it's not the same thing as a vow. This is something you are obligated to, like you are anything else.
10% of your
Right. I mean, there are different types of ma'asrot.
So I want to share just a little tidbit from my life. So my son, who has studied far more Talmud than I have, has said in conversation in passing, without discussion, several times that his dues payment, his synagogue dues payment, he doesn't consider that charity. And we haven't discussed it. And now I understand what it meant to him, what it means to him. I understand that now.
This is not really right. And part of our loss, right, by the way, is the fact that we use the word charity in place of tzedakah.
Right.
Because tzedakah and charity don't mean the same thing. Right? Tzedakah is from the root tzedek, from justice.
Charity, there's no Hebrew word for it, right?
Right. Charity is not doesn't have the same contextual background. They don't. They use the word tzedakah. Right? We're translating as charity because English doesn't have a word that matches. But maybe the way we would define it instead of charity is just giving.
Justicing.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep going. So does everyone see the structure of this section of Gemara? Right? Obvious. You might have thought. No. They're here.
There is this bottom of my coffee.
Right. You need coffee to get through Gemara. Yeah. All right. Can I get another volunteer to read next? Again, yes?
Yeah,
Go for it. We're at the bottom of the page on 269.
The Rabbi?
Rava said,
although according to most opinions, one transgresses the prohibitions against delay only after 3 festivals have elapsed. Once, even one festival has passed, he does not sacrifice the offerings he vowed to bring, he immediately violates a positive mitzvah.
This is important. We have to make sure we're clear about what is the thing we're actually talking about. What is the mitzvah of you shall not delay? What is that? What kind of mitzvah is that?
It's a negative mitzvah. Yeah?
It's a negative mitzvah. Right? You shall not. You shall not delay. It is a negative mitzvah. Right? Meaning to say that if I do it, I've transgressed. Everybody with me so far? Now there are different kinds of negative mitzvahs. I forget the names, the Hebrew names for them, but they're the ones that, like, as long as you consistently don't do it, you're fine. Which is like, I've continued to not kill anyone, right? So like,
or I continue to not delay.
well, so unlike that, I have to actually do something, right? Because if I continue not to do it, I transgress. Oh, I guess you're right.
It's a double negative.
Right.
It's a double negative. Yeah.
Right. Right, it's a lo taseh, which is a negative mitzvah. There are others, maybe it's a positive mitzvah. I always get confused by this. Positive mitzvahs, there are some that you continue to do, and then there are those you actually have to get up and do. That's what it is. Right? Okay. So what is the mitzvah that we're talking about here? That was a negative mitzvah. This is a positive mitzvah. What are we talking about? I'm sorry?
Being on top.
Being on top of it. What does that have to do with you shall not delay?
That you are acting rather than.
So that's me just not failing at a negative mitzvah. It's not the same thing as a positive mitzvah. So I'm being told, what does a positive mitzvah mean? If a negative mitzvah is a do not, what is a positive mitzvah?
Do.
It's a do. So what's the do? You shall. So what's the do that we're now transgressing?
Fulfilling your vow.
No. Yes, you think so, but no. What's the context of this? Right, lest pshita, lest you think. Yeah, Gemara in real life.
He comes back.
Ask the question. What's the question again?
No, you're right. I take it back. No, you're right. I take it back. I was thinking something else. You're 100% right. D for the win. Yeah. D wins, right? Which is, I made a vow.
You're fulfilling it right
I
away.
say,
I will give.
I'm gonna do this thing. I don't do the thing I said. I've transgressed the positive mitzvah. I haven't transgressed the negative mitzvah. Right?
Oh, you shall not delay.
Of you shall not delay.
Because
You did delay. Because you did delay.
No, I didn't delay the whole time. The reason why I was hesitant is because we're talking about festivals.
Right.
And festivals have their own offerings. So that's what I thought we were talking about.
Right.
So I'm going to still hold that in the back of my head because there's a reason why I thought it, and I could be wrong. But I could be wrong. So D, you retain your trophy for time. All right, let's turn the page. So I just actually, before you do, on page 269 at the bottom in the note, it says, the author of the 6a-b, which is a Rishon, writes that one transgresses in a very, very bottom.
Yeah, sure.
One transgresses an additional positive mitzvah with each festival that passes until he fulfills his vow. The Jerusalem Talmud can also be understood in this manner. So you were correct.
Why didn't they tell us this 3 pages ago when we were...
That's not how Gemara works. Gemara takes its time. All right, turn the page. 270. Look at this, the very end of 6a. Very exciting.
Well, but
I'll go. I made a vow here to show that this can't be read.
Hold on, before you do, you were going to say something.
so
Tevan Shavar Allah?
yeah, but kaya is. Oh, okay. That's what it is. Thank you.
Yep. Everyone good? Okay, so let's just back up and review where we are. With your mouth means vows of charity. We learned that we're immediately liable. We might have thought that this is in the same category as offerings, and therefore I would have 3 festivals. We learned that this isn't the case because poor people are everywhere, right? They exist, and this is not like a festival. This is not like an offering. There are real human beings involved, and as long as I pass one festival and I haven't done the offerings, when I have an offering, there's a positive mitzvah that I'm missing out on, as opposed to transgressing the negative mitzvah in which I have 3 festivals for. Is everybody with me so far? That's just reviewing everything we learned. Yes?
Yeah. So that's really interesting that you can both have. You can both not. It's going to get into negative.
Right.
You can both not have fulfilled a positive mitzvah at the same time that you, up until now, perhaps will be able to fulfill the negative one by not delaying. In other words, you see,
Yes.
if there's a rule that allows you to do that.
Right, so let's think of it this way, right? I make a vow. There are now 3 or 4 mitzvahs I'm encountering. 1 to do it at each festival, and 1 if I transgress at the end. Those are the 4 I have now created. Not that I created the mitzvah, but they are now incumbent on me in a way that they weren't before. Is everybody with?
3 festivals plus the
Do not delay, right? Which comes immediately after. Okay, page 270. You wanted to read to prove your vow fulfilled.
I've already delayed. I think it's too late.
Not 3 festivals.
Right, but you are responsible.
So I'm going to delay you one more time. I want to point out the following. The very first word of this paragraph is meitive, or meitivi. This word introduces an objection. So when you see this word and variations on that word, it's gonna tell you there is an objection coming.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Delay no
Gemara
more.
raises an objection from the following Mishnah. Rabbi Yashua and Rabbi Markiz testified about the offering of peace offerings. I'm sorry. They testified about the offspring of peace offerings. You want to stop there?
Would you like to stop there?
Offspring of peace offering.
All right, so a baby lamb.
Right, so I have an animal. I'm going to offer it. I have a cow, right? And the cow gives birth, right? Has a calf. Offspring of a peace offering.
Although most of the offerings are male animals, so it would not be the animal itself giving birth, it would be the animal fathering.
Right.
Could be that also.
I absolutely believe this has happened.
But wait a sec, let me back up. So the difference is this. Yes, and this is a vow offering. I can vow to offer my cow.
Sure.
I probably wouldn't want to because there's so many resources that come from.
It's probably a
But I could.
sheep or a goat. And
Right.
Oh,
Swap.
wait.
This was our difference between Fred and Frida, the goats we were talking about a couple of
Wait,
weeks ago.
it makes a giant difference, doesn't it? Like, look, if you pledge a male animal and then you delay, even if you don't transgress the thou shalt not delay and don't go, let's say you just go one festival, okay? And in the meantime, that male animal fathers a calf, right? So the calf is in a female that wasn't consecrated, that wasn't designated. So is that calf?
Wait,
That is
that.
I must. This is so fascinating. It's so fascinating. I must not delay. I'll find out where we're going here.
Once you have vowed the animal,
Yes.
whose animal is it?
The gods or whatever, yes.
Are you allowed to breed it?
I don't think so.
No,
That's what I'm saying.
that's the point.
Well, maybe it's not
Let's
your
find
choice.
out where we're going
Because
here.
if you
Like you're
delay
supposed to
it,
You
keep
have to
it
keep it
separate.
separate.
Okay.
you delay it all, mistakes will happen.
These wait. So before we read, this is
breaks the barrier.
this is what I want to say. These are all the right questions, right? Just point out. These are all the right. I'm not answering anything. They are the right questions, though. Joe, keep reading. They said.
They said that if the mother animal was consecrated before it conceived or during its pregnancy, the offspring too must be sacrificed as a peace offering.
So this is in the case of a female animal that we've consecrated. We've made hekdesh, right? But in the case of a male animal, it hasn't been specified. If it specifies at all.
Before
Well,
it
except that that's
conceived,
Rav Steinsaltz's commentary.
Yes,
Saying that
you're right. That's absolutely right.
so that this sounds repetitive. Before it conceived and during its pregnancy, isn't it repetitive?
No. So if I take my cow and I say, Bessie the cow, I'm consecrating you, and then afterwards, Bert impregnates
Before-
Bessie,
before
then
it was conceived.
right, and I hadn't taken it in, or Bessie was already friendly with Bert when I consecrated. Maybe I didn't know, right?
Rabbi Papaya said, I testify that we once had a cow that was sacrificed as a peace offering, and we ate it on Passover. And we ate its offspring as a peace offering on the festival.
Well, that was pretty
Which
cool.
is Sukkot. So Hechag, the rabbis, when they refer to Sukkot, is Chag, because it's the best one. No, I'm just kidding. But here's
They
the
had lamb chops for Sukkot.
Right.
Except,
So, right. So here's
So
the
that, I don't understand what that has to do with
so that's the question. That's the question, right? So the Gemara raises an objection to that previous thing about a positive mitzvah, right? From the following Mishnah, right? It quotes Rabbi Hushua and Rabbi Payas, who testified about an offering, about the offspring of a peace offering. Okay, so I am Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Papayas, and I make a testimony about the offspring of peace offerings, right? I am saying
when the offspring.
it doesn't say,
when-
and then it quotes him again. Rabbi Papayas said, "I testify." The second part is to come to say, to show the proof that they testified. Here's his example. In my life, I experienced this, right? Because human life experience matters. I saw this happen. This is how I know that people do this because I was there. I saw them do it. This is like seeing, this is what real people do. This is how I know because we did it.
So this is not what I thought we were talking about.
Yeah, we've kind of gone on a tangent.
So if we make a vow to on cow Bessie the cow, and Bessie the cow gives birth before we deliver the animal to the temple. I just assumed that Bessie and Bessie's offering have to get sacrificed at the same time.
You might have thought that. All we know is that that hasn't been the case.
So even though the offspring is still Hekdesh, they save it for the next opportunity.
Ah,
Except not exactly.
except not
Because
exactly.
it could have been
Because they
Shavuot.
waited until Sukkot.
Because they what?
Well,
They waited
The
until
first one
Sukkot.
was for Pesach,
they
and then
Right.
Shavuot, and then
Shavuot.
Sukkot. So there's something going on here.
Well, here's if we
No
look at-
spoilers. Keep going.
Oh no. But okay, so Rabbi Papias is specific, right? He says para, right, which is a cow, not a bull,
Yes.
right? So therefore, one could read from the fact that they waited until Sukkot that these were calves that were born just before Pesach, and they were waiting for them to be big enough to offer.
Why that?
So are there,
But wouldn't
are
they
there
be big
rules
enough
about
on
this?
Shavuos?
I mean, in other words,
How big they have to be?
because they're always talking about baby lambs and sheep and goats usually,
Yeah.
right? But you can bring cows. For
Well,
some,
right, so-
for some eat.
Well, yes, but what I find interesting here is the fact that they're having the cow for Pesach,
Right.
Because the rules of Pesach are specific that you bring
Sheep.
a
lamb.
lamb.
Right. So
Oh,
there's clearly something
Yeah.
funky going on here. Right? And I just want to take a quick side note because I love it when Corin does this and Steinsaltz does this. Little bio on the rabbi. If you look at the top left, Rabbi Papias is mentioned among the sages of Yavne, which is, does everyone know that story? The rabbis pick up and left Jerusalem when it was burning, and they convince the Romans to let them escape, and they set up a yeshiva in Yavne. It's like the very first rabbis, basically, first yeshiva, in the generation of the destruction of the temple, right? So we know that Rabbi Papias did what?
Sacrificed this
He
cow.
lived it. He
Oh,
was
he lived it,
alive
yeah, he
during
was
the
there.
temple.
He was there. Yeah.
Right, there's a little funkiness going on because it's called rabbi, and there were no rabbis at the time. Do with that what you will. And he says, he seems to have been a younger contemporary of Rabbi Hoshua. Several of his testimonies in halakhic and agadic statements, halakhic are legal and agadic are story, are found in the Mishnah and other sources. Nothing further is known about him. The name Papias is from the Greek, I'm not going to try and read it, which
Papias.
Papias. Fair enough. Which literally means father or grandfather. It came to mean gate guard. A name with the same meaning is found in Hebrew, sharia, from the word sha'ar, meaning gate. Alternatively, it is another form of the Latin name papus. So a little interesting tidbit. It helps us. The reason why I like to read these things is to recognize that, right? There's so much of this we have to like imagine, right? The temple standing and like, okay, like rabbis never really had all the power that they said they did, and they imagined everybody was so frum, and I mean that term doesn't even make any sense contextually, right? We imagine all these things, and yet when we get these pictures, these snapshots of who these people were or who we think they were, it helps paint the right picture, I think. And so, what I think is important for us to learn here is, first of all, that he's quoted in the Mishnah, which means he is early. And second, it seems likely that he lived it, which means when we're quoting stuff about the temple, this guy knows. He was there, unlike so many other rabbis. Yes, sir. Yes,
And I
ma'am.
would say an anthropological
Please.
thing here, which is it is possible perhaps that there was more than one Papias, because if it means father or grandfather, it means somebody from whom the oral tradition is direct from life experience. So it could be any You know, I mean, there could have been several of them. You know, that you need. In other words, to answer this question, maybe you should turn to one of our grandfathers who's around and bring him into the discussion.
Or
to
my
see what
father,
they
my
actually-
grandfather
Yeah,
taught.
right.
Right. So we already
It's
started.
interesting.
Absolutely.
So he says we, if the translation is good, we, not I.
Lanu. Hayata lanu. Yeah.
Yeah.
We.
We once had a cow. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it was actually his father who had the cow. And he's remembering this story from when he was a little kid,
It's very possible.
Could be? Sure.
It's very
before
possible.
he was ordained.
I didn't live that
Nothing
long
good
back
happened
then.
before ordination. No.
And to your point about the rabbis and the power, right? History is written by the victors,
Right.
right? So these are all rabbinic texts projecting back. You know, these are not priestly sources or independent sources. So,
Right.
you know, so that's part of the how we read the narrative.
Yeah.
What Rabbi Pius said. I mean, what does that mean?
Well, so remember,
Does that
all
mean
of this is
I heard him say it?
Well, so this is all right. This is an edited document, right? So if we just imagine how these layers are plugging into one another, right? So we have, we're going to look at this looking backwards, meaning to say, I'm the editor of the Talmud. I have all of these oral traditions that I have to put in an order that makes sense. And sometimes these traditions are going to quote even older traditions. We're going to quote even older traditions. We're going to quote Torah, right? And so I'm trying my best to put this in an order that makes sense. The Mishnah itself is an oral tradition that, let's just take a moment. The word for a rabbi of the Mishnah is a Tana. Tav Nun Aleph. What a Tana literally means is a memorizer. Meaning to say that they were actual people whose job it was to memorize the Mishnah. And when they said, hey, what did it say in that Mishnah? They would rattle it off because they had memorized it. That's what a Tana was. And so this is oral tradition stacked up on top of each other. Mind you, there are a zillion of these books, which is amazing that all this oral tradition. Now, I do believe lots of it was written down, right? Scraps of paper attached, you know. I don't know what your home office looks like, but I know what mine does, right? So it's tough to know exactly. I mean, I'm not an academic scholar in Talmud, so I can't say explicitly. I don't know for sure, but my understanding of this is these are things that are collected over time, people remembering, people not only remembering, but feeling their obligation to remember. I need to know this because future generations need to know this. All right, let's keep going. I want to make a little bit more progress. Good Gemara word, the next one. First word, second paragraph. Bishlama, which means it is reasonable. It's translated here as granted. It's like it's reasonable to say, which is always my favorite way to start a sentence. Right? And then right in the middle it says Ela. That's the fourth word in the second line. Ela, rather, is what that means. So it is reasonable, blank, rather, blank.
I love the debunking. That's a really excellent technique for debate.
What?
To put out there and then debunk.
Right, right.
Straw man.
Okay. Someone else, read for us.
All right, I'll read.
Go for it.
The Gemara clarifies the details of this story. Granted, on Passover itself, Rabbi Papias and his family did not sacrifice the offspring, as one can say that the animal was lacking the requisite time, i.e. it was less than 8 days old, and it's prohibited to sacrifice such a young animal.
Pause.
Yes.
I think this goes to
That
how we
answers your
statement,
question.
right? Which is, we've started to realize, probably, the presumption is what? If we had an animal and its offspring, what would the presumption be?
Sacrifice
Would you
the bow.
sacrifice
We'd
the
sacrifice them both. But we didn't. We know that we didn't. The story tells us we didn't. Not only that, the next presumption would have been what?
You do it at the next opportunity.
You do it at the next holiday. But we know that that's not the case because it tells us Sukkot,
Right.
right? All right, keep going.
So, but how could they delay and not sacrifice the offspring on Shavuos?
The question we just asked.
How could they delay? Which is the first festival after Passover, if, according to Rabbi, they would have, I presume that means violated a
Yeah.
positive mitzvah as soon as the first festival passed.
Now, finally, we're back to the original
There we
context,
are.
right? Because we were learning that it's not just about the negative mitzvah, there's a positive mitzvah each time.
Right.
So the question is, how could we imagine that the fact that this rabbi didn't do didn't fulfill the positive mitzvah that was incumbent on them.
There you go.
Right? We have to say, like, there must be a
The
reason.
animal was sick.
Could have been the animal was sick, right? There has to be a reason, right, that they would have delayed. Because it's unreasonable to imagine this rabbi waiting when the likelihood is that they were there. We already know that they make the time to go to the temple.
All right then.
Right?
Oh, Mom. Next sentence.
Perfect. Can
There
you
you
read
go.
it?
No, I can't.
Okay. Someone else then.
I'll try reading it.
Okay.
with-
You can read on mine if you really can.
Okay.
Or you can.
Rav Zevid, or Zevid, said in the name of Rava, for example, this occurs in a case where the offspring is sick on Shavuot. Bing, ding, ding, ding,
Gee,
ding.
you were just racking up these trophies.
And therefore, it could be brought to the altar only on the next festival.
Okay.
Which would be Sukkot.
Which would be right. So here, we have this problem. We need to resolve it. We can't imagine this rabbi violating a positive mitzvah when the chances are that they would have not done so. Rabbi Zavid offers a solution. And by the way, who's the solution in the name of?
In the name of Rava.
So Rava is our source for almost all of this stuff, right? So if we go back, Rava was the one who teaches us that it's immediate. Rava is the one that tells us there's a positive mitzvah each time.
There you go.
We get this story, the Gemara. The editor is saying, well, wait a second. We got this whole scenario of Rabbi Papias. Nope. Rava comes back once again to clarify. Well, this thing that happened with Rabbi Papias where he waited past Shavuot is because
The animal was
the animal was sick. Right? Couldn't have done it. A sick animal can't be offered.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay. Rav Ashi said an alternative explanation.
Gemara is not satisfied. We need another reason. Maybe there's something. Maybe the animal wasn't sick. Keep going.
What is the statement? And we ate it. So offspring.
We ate its offspring.
Right. So he's quoting the Mishnah before.
We ate its offspring as a peace offering on the festival.
Let's just pause for the back. Let's go back. If we look at the first paragraph, it says Va'achalnu v'lada shlamim bechag, and we ate its offering as a peace offering on the festival,
Except,
which we normally translate as Sukkot. However,
well,
keep going.
just one quick note about
Yeah.
this. Right? The vocalization is Rabbi Steinsaltz's, and the text does not necessarily say Bechag on the festival.
Right,
It could say Bechag, meaning on a festival, meaning another festival.
Right? It's not clear. We made an assumption. Keep going.
Okay, so
What is- start with what
the
is the statement, yeah.
What is the statement? And we ate its offspring as a peace offering on the festival coming to teach question.
Meaning to say, we quoted it before. Why do we have it?
Right. This is not referring to the festival of Sukkot, which is the usual meaning of the term the festival. Rather, it is referring to the festival of Shavuot. Therefore, there's no difficulty here whatsoever.
No problem.
Right.
They really
Yeah.
ate it on
Lost in
Shavuos.
translation. You said Chag, I thought Sukkot. That's not my fault. Right? Right? It just says holiday. What does this tell us about what the rabbis are trying to do for one another?
Get themselves out of a problem.
Right, they're trying to get,
They're
but also
anxious.
they are imagining that everyone is doing everything they can to fulfill the mitzvah. The presumption is not that Rabbi Papias had a lazy part of the year. No, there's not. It's not conceivable that he would have delayed. We're giving him the benefit of the doubt, and not only that, but we offered two solutions. The animal was sick; it wasn't his fault. Not only that, it wasn't that the animal was sick. In fact, you read it wrong. This sentence does not come to teach us about Sukkot, but in fact, Shavuot. Okay, we're gonna stop there for today.
Just one thing.
Yeah.
When they start talking about Rava and Ravashi, are they like pulling out the big guns? Are they two of the?
They are major and named rabbis, absolutely. I don't know if that, in the sense that they're quoting them because they are particularly authoritative. I'm not sure that that's the case.
I mean, it could be that they're the ones who had something useful to say on
Right.
this.
Right, it just might
I
be
was
that
just wondering if somebody's trying to like throw the table
Right.
over by saying, "Oh, well, I'm going to quote
Right. You're quoting Taft, but I'm quoting Lincoln.
Yeah.
Right?
Will you
Yeah.
keep this?
Yes, I will keep all of your
No,
sheets.
but also Rav Ashi would be saying something as an
I-
alternate
you're right.
explanation, which also supports